Hi, Sandra.
Hi, how are you?
It's nice to be able to see like where people are from.
Yeah, yep. And they're
Yeah.
all over the world. We've had people from all different countries joining us.
Isn't that great?
It
But so
is.
I used to do a monthly series called Let's Explore, and we interviewed agents that worked market centers outside of the US. And during COVID, we brought it inside the US because it was awful to tease people with Europe when you couldn't go. So we focused on like vacation markets inside the US, but it was just great to hear how people do business all over the world.
Very cool. Love that.
Yeah.
So let's just give it another minute. We usually have people kind of jumping on at the last second here. And I apologize to everybody. We did this right in the middle of spring masterminds. Sorry about that. Usually we do this the second Tuesday of every month, but this month
Yeah.
I am going to Egypt next week. So I didn't think I should do this from Egypt just in case technology wasn't so good there. So we had to make a little adjustment this month, but I appreciate everybody jumping on and being flexible that way.
Well,
You're gonna have fun. Where are
Thank
you
you.
going in Egypt?
I don't know. I didn't schedule it. My husband is the travel agent, so I just go wherever he says. As long as I can ride a camel, I'm happy.
You'll enjoy it. It's right before it gets too hot.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that because I hear it is very hot over there.
you're going to have fun.
Yeah, I'm excited. I am very excited. Well, so we're gonna just go ahead and get started. Thanks for those people who are putting where they're from. Oh, somebody says they can't hear us.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do for you. Sorry.
I just wrote her privately.
Okay, thank you. That's why we have you, Davies, because you are the fixer of all problems. All right, so I'm gonna just a couple things. A couple people have emailed me back from the invites asking for my social media. So I'm gonna just put that in the chat in a few minutes. So feel free to follow us on Instagram, my personal Facebook. I love to be friends with you, or I have a team one as well. So either one is fine. And we'll put that information in the chat. But we are not here to talk about me today. We are here to talk to Jeannette Spinelli. Super excited to have her here. She is a rock star agent out of Austin, Texas. She has so many accolades. I would be remiss, I'm not going to be able to name them all, but I will give it a try here. Last year, they closed 122 million in deals. Overall, they've closed over $1 billion. Yes, I said $1 billion in real estate. That's amazing. It's not often you get to sit in a room with a top producer like that and actually have the opportunity to ask them questions. Only at Keller Williams would you have that opportunity. So super excited to have Jeannette here today. And towards the end, we'll open it up for questions. So we'll just get started now. Jeannette, how about you just give us a little bit of your background, just a little bit about how you got into real estate?
Oh, well, I was one of those part-time realtors in the very beginning. Some of us used to be that, and some of us know people like that. And I really wasn't intending on making this a big career. I was engaged, and I had a daughter that was getting ready to leave for college, so my life was really busy. And we were taking on kind of projects, like personal projects of buying houses and renovating them. And one that we had purchased was completely gutted. When my fiance was sadly killed in a car accident a month before the wedding.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I found myself with a complete change of life, literally overnight. And in a lot of debt, which I never had before, because he was doing all of the renovation and paying for that. That was his portion of the investment in this particular property. That house was in my name, and he was funding the the renovations, paying the vendors and buying the materials, which all continued to show up even the day after he passed away. There were people that were working and expecting to get paid, and there was no money. And so I had used all the money that I had to fund this purchase. I didn't have any liquid, I didn't have any cash. And so I started paying for everything with credit cards, even groceries. Those checks, the paper checks you get in the, I don't know if they still do that, but that's how I supported my family. So I was well over six figures in debt overnight. And I looked at my real estate business at that time. This was 20 years ago. I don't know what the average price point was in Austin, but not high. My average price point was $99,000.
Wow.
And I thought it's going to take me 17 years to get out of debt, or I can raise my price point. And I calculated I needed to raise it, not double it, but I needed to get like at 500,000, which was almost getting close to luxury in our market, 20 years ago. But I didn't know anything about wealthy people. I wasn't wealthy. I hadn't been in high net worth environments. I didn't have any friends in that type of community. I hadn't been in what we would call a luxury home. I hadn't even stepped foot in a house like that. I had no idea how to market something like that. I didn't know how to do any of it, but I had a definite need. And that is what, drove me to figure it out really fast. I didn't have any other option. And within 2.5 years, I paid down debt that I thought was going to take me 17.
Wow.
So I'm tremendously grateful to this industry. I get a little emotional about it, actually. Excuse me, but I'm really indebted to this industry and agents who helped me, because there were a lot of wonderful agents in our community who just helped me. By the grace of God, I met these people that were wonderful, and I made a couple of cold calls, and I called the right person that led me to a subdivision that I sold, and I have an active listing in that subdivision right now for just under $3 million. So that gift keep giving to me. And that was, really, I count that to a higher power, because I could have never put those people in my path. And then of course, the rest is up to you, as they say. So it was just a matter of taking advantage of those opportunities.
Wow, Jeannette, thank you for being so vulnerable with us and sharing that story. I'm sure that's a hard one to swallow every day. But also thank you for sharing that with our listeners, because it definitely shows them that they can do it. We've probably got people on here that haven't sold anything yet, or maybe they've sold one property, two properties, or maybe just a mobile home. And hearing your story, it becomes very clear that it is up to you, right? It is up to you and what you put into it and how hard you work, and you can make it happen. At this point, Jeannette is in Gary's top group. So we know that she is the elite of the elite, right? So you can do it too. If she did it in that situation, you can do it as well. So thanks for sharing that. I'm so my heart is pounding from hearing your story. I'm sorry you went through that, but it's very powerful that you're sharing that with us at the same time. So tell us a little bit about your team now. You went from a single agent to, what does your team look like now?
Today we have 10 active agents. We have 3 full-time in the office administrators. We third party out our transaction coordination, but she's certainly part of the team. We have 3 VAs in the Philippines that we get through Brevity that does a lot of heavy lifting.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we're looking for a productivity coach right now. We're always, upgrading things, but I didn't start off that way. And I think you brought up a very good point. There's probably people in the audience who maybe haven't sold anything, or they're a solo agent, or they're struggling, kind of like I did for many years with a couple of agents, but it was just like a revolving door. They were coming in and out, and most of the production was still on my shoulders. So I know the audience has, all kinds of different people in different situations. I just think it's very important that that you don't go from 0 to 100, that it is about laying out some strategic kind of waymaker, points that you know that you're striving to get to that, and then the next thing and the next thing. And that comes first from just being real clear about what you want. I call that white space. If any of you know Via Williams, one of the best advice that she ever gave me when I was trying to make decisions about things is she said, you haven't allowed yourself enough white space to make this decision. And white space is literally like no phone, no. I went away for 2 days without anything but a notebook, my pajamas, and a pen. I didn't even take my phone, like to make big decisions. So, before you put together a strategy, you want to make sure you're clear on what your goal is. And if luxury is a goal of yours, just know, and I see other luxury agents on here like Mark. Hi, Mark. How are you, my friend? The people that are already there can attest that you don't go from, I didn't go from $99,000 house to an $800,000 house. There were steps along the way, and to kind of be kind with yourself and just know that the process will pay off if you stick to your plan and you're really aggressive and proactive with that plan.
I love that. Because I think a lot of people do think that, you wave a magic wand and one day you are in luxury, or they think that you were born into luxury, or, something magical happened, right? But a lot of people get into luxury just from grit, right? Lots of hard
Right.
work and just climbing that ladder. And I would say for us, my team is the same way, where we've just kind of climbed our way there. It wasn't a magic wand. I wish there was one. But yeah, working our way up there. So tell us a little bit about that working, how, like, some of the little tidbits that you did along the way to get there.
Well, again, this is 20 years ago, so it's a little bit harder. Now you have like the internet and, and helpful things like that. But I just did the research. I went to Borders bookstore. I scrounged up enough money for a cup of coffee that I sipped on even cold so I could have a reason to hang there. And I just grabbed every bit of information that I could on what I thought wealthy people would be interested in. From real estate to finance to cigars to boats to like anything that I thought a wealthy person might have an interest in, so that I would at least have something to talk about. Nowadays you've got the internet, but there's all kinds of great, there's white papers you can download. There's a great podcast from the Luxury Institute, not the CHLMS, but it's called Luxury Institute. A guy named Milton Petrosky puts that on. There's Wealth X. There's a whole load of places that you can go to kind of learn. And of course, in your community, you've got to go where wealthier people are. And a lot of times that's through charitable things, volunteer. You've got to expand your comfort zone of where your sphere is, if indeed you're wanting to work out of that or a step above that. And I think the other thing that you can do too is analyze where your business already is. And is there a neighborhood just adjacent at the price point's a little bit higher? Maybe you start focusing on that neighborhood. You have some connectivity because perhaps it's the same elementary school or school district or, whatever. There's some commonality. You don't want to necessarily skip completely across town to an area that you're unfamiliar with. So things like that will help kind of bridge that gap. There's another exercise I do. I by the way, I teach a luxury class that's being kind of updated right now. And when it's available, I'll send it to you, Sandra, and you can send it out. But we have a whole hour just on this, but a brief abbreviated synopsis is this exercise that I have people do, where you take your database and you carve out your top 20% by price point. It doesn't matter where your price point is, just carve out the top group, carve out an additional top 20% of what I would call like your raving fans. They may not necessarily be your most expensive buyer or seller, but they know you, they love you, and they talk about you all the time. So that's also another group. And then if you've been doing this for a while, carve out your people that have been in their home for 5 years plus. And if there might be some crossover, but the net of that is going to be what I call kind of an elevated sphere, an elevated database. And you can treat them a little bit differently than everyone else. Not in terms of, I mean, I do believe everybody, whether you're a $200,000 buyer or 2 million, obviously deserves your professionalism and your customer service. I'm talking about level of attention.
Mhm.
Usually you have so many people in your database every day. You're thinking, where do I go? Who do I do? What do I prioritize? What do I focus on? And this 20% that you've accumulated and the net of that helps you to keep in mind these are this elevated group. And you might treat them differently in the sense of maybe they will be moving up because they've been in their home for 5 years or more.
Mhm.
The other group that knows and loves you, and the other group that's at the top of your price point, maybe it's time for them to evolve into a more expensive house. There's a life cycle for your buyers and sellers, right? Like a bell curve. They're usually buying more or buying in a nicer neighborhood or buying bigger and then they get to the top of that bell curve and then the kids are grown and then it starts going back the other way. And they want something smaller. And that kind of piece right there is very important because those are the people who now have some liquidity. They've got some money and maybe they will now be interested in an investment property, a kitty condo, moving their parents closer to them from out of state, a vacation home, wherever they vacation, get a referral partner in there. So next time you're doing your care calls, you can let them know, hey, Susan, I see you vacation in such and such. I've got a great referral partner, Mark Stewart in Raleigh. Let me connect you. You never know when you might be, wanting to buy a home in a place that you already love to go, that you might want to retire to. And in the process, short-term renters are paying your note down and you're buying it at today's prices instead of the prices that they'll be when you get to retirement. It's just a way of squeezing out more deals from the same person. And as you move into these higher price points, there's going to be more opportunity for that, but you've got to be knowledgeable, right? And be prepared to have those conversations. So part of that gathering of information, of learning, their speak and I say they because I still don't consider myself like my, I sell homes I would never buy, right?
Right.
That's what, when I say they, I mean, the priciest homes in at least Austin, Texas. But part of that is the financial conversation.
Right.
So I've heard from a lot of agents that they're really uncomfortable. They don't, they're not a financial advisor. You don't have to be to have these kind of
Right.
basic conversations. But what you do need to do is you have to earn your seat at the table
Right.
alongside your client's estate planner, your client's accountant, your client's, estate attorney.
Right. So Jeanette, would you agree that what we're trying to accomplish is knowing enough information that we understand the conversation and we understand who do we refer them to for different topics as well. We don't have to be an expert in all the areas, but we do need to not stand there looking like, I don't know what you're talking about, you're over my head. We need to know enough to not look surprised and to provide referrals and relationships where needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you'll learn something too, because you're working your way into more income and you need to be smart. I mean, oh my gosh, if all the mistakes I made with my money, even after getting myself out of that debt, I still made a lot of mistakes, and that just came from a lack of knowledge.
Mhm.
And so you're benefiting yourself. It's great if you're able to say, I did this and this worked for me. I just had a conversation with I have a director of sales. He works with, the majority of the agents, and then my top few agents that are really working sphere and database and not any other kind of lead gen activity. I coach them on Tuesday mornings. So I just had this conversation with them and I said, you want to be able to talk about wealth building with your clients, because that takes a little bit of pressure off of making those calls. I mean, your phone can feel like 500 pounds some
Yeah.
days. We are all there, even me. And now I only work with 104 households. I reduced my 16,000 person database in my agents and my director of sales were kind of those neighborhoods that we would mail to, that it wasn't an actual client, but we're just doing that kind of marketing. And now I just work with 104 households. And so, for them, those conversations are able to be really deep, but it's also because I've educated myself on wealth building and how that happens. If any of you have not taken the, I think it's called the Wealth Series 2.0, that, and there's a podcast. I think it's called, oh gosh, I should know this. I'll look it up while I'm talking, but I think the podcast might be Wealth Series. I'll figure it out. But they offer it a couple times a year, and it's usually free.
Mhm.
And that's a great place, again, not just for your clients, but for yourself,
Yourself.
because you're going to be making this money to enable yourself to have these conversations and to make that phone lighter than 500 pounds. Oftentimes it needs to come from the value that you're giving to them in
Right.
presenting them, and not always, do you need to buy or sell? I mean, nobody wants that phone call. Do you need to buy or sell? Do you need to buy or sell? Do you need to buy or sell? I mean, nobody, if you're going to have people retreating from you, if every time they pick up the phone, that's your message. But if you're offering them something that might help them, and one of the ideas I shared with my group this morning is, this is timely, I believe, always looking at the market and figure out what's going on. In this resonates with people in the luxury arena, or as they're working their way to that place, is everybody's talking about, what happened with the banks, right, in California. And it's a great conversation to just pick up the phone and say, did you diversify your money in the bank so you don't have over $250,000 in the bank account? One thing you're going to learn right now is, do they have over $250,000? Because usually the response is, "Oh, I wish I had 250,000." Well, that gives you some information you can use. Or they say, "Oh yeah, I've already done that." Or, "God, that's a great idea. I need to do that." Now, they've got $250,000 cash sitting around. Like, what could they do with that cash? Could they buy some investment properties in your market, Terry, in Panama City Beach? I mean, I would suspect that you could rent those out in a vacation area. I mean, you know your market, right?
Right.
So you should be able to know, what could somebody do? What could that money benefit? And that conversation comes, there you are, earning your seat at the table alongside their accountant and their financial advisors by giving them some ideas. You're not saying, "Buy from me, buy from me." You're
Right.
saying, "Are you protecting the money you already have? Should you put it in a Fidelity account?" That's what I did with all my cash. Now I'm making money every month instead of it just sitting there. I mean, that's a service. And the wealthy want to know that you know what to do with money. If you have your own experience in it, even better. You don't have to move $1 million into a Fidelity account. If you move $10,000 into the interest-bearing Fidelity account, you've still done it, right? You're
Right.
still having that experience. You can speak from that experience. And there's been lots of studies that have been done over the years about the wealthy, and they typically are self-made. So don't feel like you can't speak to them. You're self-made. Most agents are self-made. They tend to be more female than male buyers putting real estate into their portfolio. Women tend to have more cash on hand than men. They're getting younger and younger and younger these days. And they are searching for guidance. A lot of times they didn't grow up with any money or anyone in their world that they can look at and say, I want to do what he did. And so you can be their economist, you can be that person of value, and that makes all of the conversations just go that much smoother.
Right. It's an easy way to get the conversation going. So you're not just trying to take all the time. You're offering something back, giving them something of value. So this is great information. I love this. I love the ideas that you've given everybody of how to pick up that phone and make that phone lighter. Do you only do luxury at this
No.
point? Okay. So
No.
tell us a little bit about that thought process.
Well, for a while, and I think this is an important point for people there or working their way into the luxury market. It's very hard to duplicate yourself when you are one person selling luxury, right? If you ever have the sense that you want to take off half the year, or do extensive traveling that I know like Mark does to Italy. They've got a home there. I have a home in Nantucket. I think somebody in
Nice.
here is from Boston. So, in order to have the money and the time, you have to build yourself a business. You can't just be buying and selling, working with buyers and sellers on their homes. You have to create a structure for yourself. And it also helps to diversify, just like you would diversify anything you're investing in, to diversify your own database. And you can do that by yourself. And I'll talk about that in a second. You can also do that with even just one other agent, 5 other agents, 20 other agents. Like we hire for areas. We hire, like the Lake Travis areas, 30 minutes away. I can go there, not a problem. But I love to hire someone there who's already integrated into those schools and going to the grocery store there. And, that's how you get business done, right? So,
Right.
So to have some diversification in any investment is wise. And you're an investment. You invest time and money in yourself. You invest time and money in your job. And if you're wise, you're going to invest time and money into growing a business so that if you want to travel, if, hopefully not, you're in a situation where you have to take time off for an illness or another family member has a situation, that you still have income coming in. So I didn't learn that until well into my career. I wish I had learned that 15 years before, but it's never too late, right? And so I think the lesson for you to be thinking about is how do I diversify for stability, right? Because like in this shift right now, I don't know about your markets, but it's taking longer for us to sell our homes that are $3 million and above.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's better to have, multiple $500,000 homes than to have one house that's $3 million.
Right. Yeah.
Those paychecks are great. Those clients are great. The houses are beautiful. I learned something from those transactions because those clients are smart. I mean, people don't get to buy $3, $4, $8 million houses because they're dumb. Like they've done something. So I'm learning from all of that. There's nothing wrong with that, right? This is a luxury conversation. But I think don't forget that diversification of price point is good for when the market shifts. And also, ultimately, luxury is a service business. Don't want to sell luxury homes if you are not interested in being a servant, because quite literally, there are days where I feel like it. I feel like I am just another person in their world that is there to serve whatever they need. And we have a mantra that if it's not illegal, immoral, or unethical, we will do it.
I love that. I love that.
I've come to regret that a few times. Like, to do some things, I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I'm
Right.
doing this. But
Like, is this really my job? Is this what I've come to? Yeah.
yeah, but it's about the relationship, right? And so that leads back into the price point. That luxury seller or buyer may have a child who needs a condo to go to
Mhm.
college. That's a great lead-in. Buy a condo, help them pay for their college, have the roommates pay the mortgage, right? That's what we talked about, that getting another transaction out of somebody. But that's not going to be a luxury price point. And you
Right.
don't want them to never refer anyone to you unless it's someone else buying or selling a $3 million, property. That's a good referral source. I can't remember the study that showed that a high net worth individual on average knows 7 other high net worth individuals. So that's a great referral source. We want that, but you don't want to pigeonhole yourself in a situation where people think I can only reach out to you if this is a multi-million dollar house.
Right. Right.
I
And
remember I'm sorry.
I was going to say, and I'm sure you've had the experience where you've had a renter or a low end buyer who turns into that $5 million buyer or seller. And if you had turned away that client at the beginning when they wanted a $5,000 a month lease, or they wanted to buy a $200,000 property, you would have never gotten that $5 million buyer.
Oh, absolutely. We have countless examples.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Good
Yeah.
point.
You really don't know who people are sometimes, right? When you get started, you think, oh, this is just something small. And all of a sudden you're selling $10 million worth of properties to them and their families. It really becomes amazing.
But also if they're a raving fan of yours over your career, they could refer.
Yep.
That equates to 10 million, several $500,000 referrals can easily be a multi-million dollar person. And that is why you want to treat all those people, with, as I mentioned earlier, the same as you would, a multi-million dollar buyer, because if you're in this career long enough, they're going to move up their price point with you and move down their price point with you. And at the same time, refer all these other people. And there's also a great exercise that you guys can do on your own. There is, if you take your average price point, I mean, I'm sure everybody knows their average price point, and just multiply it by 20%. So that might be your next price point that you're going after. And then take that new number. So if it's 500,000, 20% now becomes 600,000. Now take that 600,000 and do a 20% on that. And then take that and build it out over 5 years and see what intentionality will bring you. Now you know a number. You're an average $500,000 person and you want to get to 600,000, or your average price point is $1 million. The agents on my team, their average price point is just under $1 million. Mine is 2.2. But for them, if they want to get up to the next step, what I would be telling them is, where can you find 1.2?
Mm-hmm.
Who did you sell? If that's their average, they've sold to someone above that, right? That's how you get to an average. So who in their world already is at 1.2 or higher? Remember that the other exercise I said, who are your raving fans that you can call and say, there's a great $1.2 million house that just came out. Doesn't have to be your listing. Do you know anybody that's looking in that price point? These are people that love you, right? So they want to help you. Most of the time people want to help you. But when you do that exercise for yourself, and I encourage you to do that when this ends, look at the additional GCI that you're going to make at not your total, but the difference between what you'll make if you just are keeping your price point the same, you're not doing anything proactive or strategic to raise it, versus what you would make if you raise your price point, what that's going to look like. And even on a $500,000 house, the average is over $1 million in additional income. Everyone has something to do with $1 million of additional income. And now you have a target, because now you can say, where do I go for 1.2?
Right. I love that. I love that. It's actually creating a plan of how to get to where you want to be, rather than just hoping and praying that it happens and crossing your fingers. It's actually putting it on paper and figuring out, how do I get there? How do I actually get that additional 20%? Where is that? Where are those properties? So that's great. I love that. Real quick, and then I'm going to open it up for questions for everybody else to ask you what's their burning questions. What kind of events do you do? Do you do events for your people?
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up because events are, well, they're incredibly fun. Of course, everybody likes to come to something, but I think they're really powerful because you can target events for certain goals, right? If you're wanting to move into a neighborhood, you can target something for that area. You know, you can do shredding events, or we just did the Easter Bunny, you know, went around and we did porch photos with Easter Bunny, and that's always real popular. We're getting ready to do a fundraiser, which I think is important to tie to your events for my little pepper Harper. We do a fundraiser for our local shelter, and people bring their dogs, and the photographer's there to take photos with the mommies and daddies and their fur babies, and people love that. So I think you have to really look at where your folks are, you know, what are they interested in, and make sure that you're creating experiences that match that. And if you, and they don't have to be big. So in other words, if you are wanting to move into this higher price point and you have a couple people you've sold that area, you know, in that price point before, that area before, you can even do small dinner parties. I host those at my house, you know, with 8 other people, and it doesn't have to be grand and it doesn't have to be expensive. I mean, reach out to your vendors and have them cover costs for you. You can have things like my dog's party is at a local park, you know, so you don't have an event fee. But you can do some really interesting things, and I'll tell you about a couple of them really quickly. I think also, you know, you're looking at the house, right? You know, if you need to do an event that drives people into a house. So as an example, years ago, we had a listing that had this amazing closet, like amazing closet, ladies, you would love. And so we did a little fashion show. We had the closet designer there. You know, we made sure that there was like a little red carpet that led to the closet, you know, the guest of honor, the closet. And of course, they're seeing the rest of the house too. You know, we had a listing where it was like it had a 12-car garage, which is unusual for here. I don't know about where you are, but it's unusual for Austin. We had a 12-car garage. And so we called some of the high performance, you know, car dealerships and had them bring a few cars in. And of course that attracted people. A lot of people were there just to see the cars, but the effect was that the seller was pleased. There were a lot of eyes on their property. And indeed the buyer came from one of the, I don't know if it was a Maserati or Lamborghini sales rep who called as a service, and we kind of coached them. You know, we said, hey, this is a touch for you to reach out to your database. You know, we forget, we get a lot of education other salespeople never experience. So we gave him the idea, call your database to come to the event. And he did that, but he also called the database back for people who didn't come to the event. Remember, I talked about that's an additional touch. And he shared with that person about the house, and that person ended up buying it. They didn't come to the event, but he got them in a follow-up.
Right. So Jeannette, I love what you said about teaching them what this will do for them. We haven't done this kind of an event, but we have a perfect house for this right now. It has a huge portico that has, you could probably put 10 cars in there. So we've talked about doing the car thing, but I guess you just put it together for me right now, because I felt like, okay, why are we asking them to bring these cars? And that's a pain for them. What are they going to get out of it? And you just bridge the gap for me. So thank you. We're gonna make that happen now that you said that. I know it's so simple, yet it really was like the drunk monkey on my shoulder saying, what is the benefit to them? Why would they want to do this? But
and then add them to your database, right? You went through the trouble of calling these vendors, you went through the trouble of creating a relationship. Some of them will participate. Add them to your database for all your other events that you're going to do. And particularly if you're trying to work into the high net worth arena, car salesmen, personal trainers. I mean, all those people deal with clients who have discretionary income.
Right, right. I love that.
Mhm.
All right, so I think let's open it up to some questions. I know I see some that have been posted in the chat. Davies, are you with us still? Oh, you're on mute. Davies is really good at reading us our questions so that we can keep things moving along.
We had one earlier in the beginning of the conversation where they asked, was it Wealth X? Should have
Mhm.
stopped and asked earlier, but
Yeah, so you can Google WealthX. It's a website, and it used to be that we got access to it through KW Luxury, and I don't know if that is, yeah, it's just wealthx.com. I don't know if that's still accurate. Um, but there's information in there even without being a member. There's all kinds of reports and articles. I just pulled it up. It's wealthx.com. If you go to the top where it says insights, there's a drop down that says exclusive reports, articles, and daily news. And you'll see all these little thumbnails. They just did their World Wealth X report 2022. There's a billionaire census. There's information on the pursuits of the wealthy and why they matter, preservation of succession, wealth, family wealth transfers, luxury travel. So there's all kinds of information. Again, you're not, going to be their financial advisor, but this is the kind of info that I got when I was trying to figure out why would anyone wealthy listen to me. I'm in loads of credit card debt, and I'm in a nightmare right now. Why would anybody care to listen to me? But to just have some language that you're able to borrow and share, I think is important. And as I said, WealthX is just one of the many, many. There's typically a white pages that's, I think Christie's used to put one out. If you Google around, you'll find real estate white pages. I think somebody had asked about the podcast, and it's the Luxury Institute. And the guy who puts it on is Milton Putowski. And again, it's just a place to find information that you can share. Yeah, the Luxury Institute. You just did one on January 5th.
Yeah. There's also the KW Wealth Group that Brett Tanner does. So that's another good one. I went to his seminar at Mega Camp, and it was really good. And I think that would give people some good little tidbits, little talking points that aren't so overwhelming. Like they're really little short things that you could have a conversation about college for their kids, or about saving taxes, different things like that. So little small things that you could bite into. So that's a good resource as well. We do have another question asking, how important is your image in luxury?
Well, I think your image is important in or out of luxury. I mean, I don't think you have to look like you have a $20,000 suit on, but you need to, you need to look nice. I mean, when I first started, I just had like 3 outfits. I mean, honestly, I just kind of got good at switching something out with a t-shirt I got from Target and made it look new. And, I think it's important to know that people that are selling luxury weren't always probably luxurious and and that's okay. But your car needs to be clean. You need, it doesn't have to be fancy, but I think it needs to be clean. You need to look professional and inappropriate. And I think you have to, be careful when you're in these situations with couples. The ladies have to be, you got to be kind of covered up. No wife wants their husband to be around, someone with cleavage. And, it's just, should it matter? Maybe not, but it does.
Yeah.
And you and I are not going to change that. So if you want to be successful, you need to look professional and appropriate.
How about social media? That's part of the questions as well. Do you do your own social media or do you have somebody that does it for you? And how important is the image there?
I mean, we have somebody in-house, an employee that does it. And
Okay.
again, I think you have to be careful what you put out there. It can't be controversial. It can't be, I don't think it should be political. I think you have to be mindful. Like, I certainly have my opinions on certain things going on in the world, but I support them in other ways. I don't put it on social media. I think it needs to be data driven, particularly if you're trying to position yourself and earn your seat at the table with all of those financial advisors in your client's world. Then you need to know what you're talking about. It needs to be data driven, and in a mix. I mean, I think everybody probably knows you need to show that you're a human being. I think it's fine to show you out with the kids, or on a vacation, that type of thing. You're like they are, but there needs to be, I think, at least 50% needs to be data driven and a place of value. It all matters. It matters what your marketing pieces look like. It matters what your sign looks like. I mean, if your sign's dirty or dented, get a new sign. When you go to put that sign in the yard, or your open house signs, stop using ones that look horrible. Every little thing that you do, even as we talk about that, your image is established even at an open house. Did you get there early enough that you're prepared? Do you have a nice sign-in sheet? Do you have pens? I still encourage you to do a clean pen and a sanitized. I mean, there are people that are still, concerned about that. And that just shows that you have empathy, right? You're not tone deaf. When it's a really hot day, roll up. If it's anybody checked into a beautiful hotel, and they meet you with the rolled up towels that are chilled with a little couple drops of lavender on it. Have those rolled up towels on a silver platter with just a little tongue that you're handing out to people. You think any other open house that went into that day has that? No.
They'll definitely remember you.
They're going to remember you. So everything matters.
Right. Now, I want to just circle back to, yes, the question was about luxury, but I think from what I heard you say earlier, that everything matters regardless of if it is a 200,000 or a 5 million luxury. So we're talking just in general as being a business person and being a successful business person, everything does matter.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love
Absolutely.
it. All right. Question. They're asking if you recommend having a coach for luxury, but let me back that up even further. First, do you have a coach?
Well, I coach kind of twice a week with, I'm a place partner. So we get a call with Ben Kinney on Monday and a call with Chris Suarez on Friday. And in my opinion, they're the best coaches in the world. So I coach with them. Now I'm working on a new project that is a book and a course. And so I have a coach helping me with that is not a real estate coach.
Okay.
They're like a writing coach. And so I believe that we all need coaches. It doesn't matter what we're doing. That's why the best people in the world, I mean, I don't know if you know Brendan, do you know who Brendan Burchard is? He wrote the Motivation Manifesto and several books. He's a coach for people like Oprah. And, if Oprah needs a coach, you need a coach, right?
I love that.
So it doesn't matter where you are. People are always working on something, personal development, getting into luxury, how to do your social media better. So I believe in surrounding yourself with those people, whether they're like a legitimate coach or not. I don't know if it's so important that you're in a coaching program per se. Everybody's situation is different, but I think who you're surrounding yourself with is going to elevate you.
I love
not.
that.
Or
Hey,
not.
Sandra.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you definitely need to find the right person. And I think that's one thing, well, I'm echoing that myself. I think that's one thing that it's important for people to realize is that the first coach may not be the best coach for you. You have to find a good fit. And there's nothing wrong with saying this isn't the best fit. I'm on my third coach and I love all three of them. Every time I see them, I give them all a big hug. but for different
Mhm.
phases of my career, I've needed different people. So I think it's really important if you are coaching and you're feeling a little stuck, maybe it's time to just make a shift and check out another one. But
Yeah.
I agree with Jeannette how important a coach is. You feel sometimes very alone if you don't have that person on your island with you, helping you through some of the tough things. This business is hard and we need support.
Definitely. Definitely. And I think somebody had asked, do you recommend a coach getting started in luxury? The unfortunate thing is there are not a lot of luxury coaches. And the reason for that is that your time is so expensive. Like it's impossible to make the money to like you could go sell a house and make $200,000. It's going to take you a lot of hours of coaching. And that's why I think there are coaches that talk to you about luxury, but I have yet to find a luxury agent who started coaching.
Mhm.
And I like somebody who's actually done it. I don't want to take luxury coaching advice from someone who hasn't sold a house over $500,000. So that's the challenge. That's why you don't find a lot of them. And I've been approached many times to do that. And I just economically it doesn't make any sense. But and I don't want to like only plug myself, but there is actually a great class that I teach. And the experience for, and I'll put it in here. Again, you can't sign up for it right now because we're redoing it, but it should be redone in like 60 days, maybe a little bit less. I'm just sending this.
All
If you
right,
go
great.
to experiencegrowth.com, there it's called Lead with Luxury. And the old one is in there. If you do, if you're just chomping at the bit, you're like, I want to take this. I think it's $99, but you'll see it was done like during COVID. And so, it's just slightly outdated, but a lot of the content we're carrying over. I'd say, 80% of the content is evergreen. It's what I did. It's what we still do. It's what you can do. So
Right.
you could take that. Just know that in like 2 months we'll re-release it, and it's a at your own pace, so you can go through each section. There's workbooks with it, but we're going to talk about how you get started, how you move up. We talk about buyers, we talk about sellers. Those are in two different sections, 2 different days. We talk about pricing, because the worst thing you want to do is work hard to get a client and then you don't know how to price,
Right.
because pricing is different at luxury level. We talk about marketing, we talk about the client experience. So I think not to toot my own horn, but I honestly do think it's the best luxury coaching class that
Right.
is out there.
Okay, great. Well, you've got that information in the chat for everybody. We've got another question. Do your team members work your leads? Do you cap what you give to your team by price point, not including what they gen themselves?
Well, so my situation's slightly different, and I think this is good to share because this is something that you might aspire to do. I searched across the US for a person to be my director of sales. I found her in Indiana. Actually, Holly Priester, if you know who she is, found her for me. Thank you, Holly. And we moved her. And the whole point of that was to bring her in as my director of sales, but also to have her take over my clients, my select group of clients. So she kind of takes care of those for me, whoever I'm not working with. But from a general conversation, when a lead comes in, if a lead isn't going to come into me because I don't participate in any of the lead gen, Brivity or any of those leads we get, but we do divide it up by price point. Like people have to graduate into being able to work at a 500,000, a million, on up. So it is divided up like that. But we also, sometimes it's based on area. If a lead comes in and it's a 45-minute drive outside of the main city and it's a suburban area and we've got an agent that has already been successful there and worked it. We want to support them in building up their success in that area.
Perfect. Jeannette, how do you prepare your agents to treat the clients the way you want them to be treated and to do the listing presentation the way you want it to be done?
Mhm. Well, definitely they have to earn out of the listing presentation. So we have a process for them that they have to perform their presentation for Hillary quarterly. We usually do something that I observe, and they have to work their way out of that. We also have an agent, Alexa, who is just incredible in her listing presentation, and so they work with her. We compensate Alexa for this role, and they work with her on learning it.
Mhm.
It's recorded. I encourage them, listen to it while you're driving, listen to it, in the shower, like wherever, make the most use of your time and get it down. And then they can earn their way to maybe customizing it a little bit or earn their right to adjusting it with permission. But that's a pretty standard process for how to treat people. I mean, there is a lot of shadowing that goes on, and I encourage that, but we've got a couple of books that we encourage people to read. And oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. One is by their last name is Heath. Power of Moments. I knew it would come to me. One is called The Power of Moments. It's two brothers, and it's a book for service. It's not necessarily just for real estate, but in that book, it talks about the peaks, the pits, and the transitions in an experience, and it totally lends itself spot on to real estate. And when you think about it, there's peaks, like you're just under contract. There can be pits that are out of your control. The title company, the lender, the inspector left the oven on, all these things that happen that aren't related to your actions. And then transitions, the transition of moving out, moving in. I mean, it 100% lends itself to real estate. So we have everybody read that. I encourage you to read that. A new book that came out by Will Giardi. He was the restaurateur who did 11 Madison, the #1 restaurant in the world. It's in New York City. He wrote Unreasonable Hospitality. He was just a recent speaker at Buildtown, and I think he probably got the highest reviews of all the keynotes there because he did such a remarkable job. And he just put out a book called Reasonable Hospitality that I haven't read yet, but that's kind of required reading. We also have just a set process for the team for touches. We call them, it's our power moment touches, so they know that when somebody goes under contract, their client gets this gift. When they get through the inspection, they get a different gift. So it's throughout the process and not just at closing that we kind of treat them and make them feel special or fill in a pit if there was a problem. And so
Right.
they see by example in our processes how to treat their clients.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think we all wrote those books down, and we will all be purchasing those later today. I want to be respectful of everybody's time, so I'm going to kind of wrap it up here. Jeannette, such great information you shared with us. Me personally, I'm walking away from this with a couple of items that I'm going to institute immediately. So I'm sure everybody else has a few of those as well. Really, really enjoyed hearing from you and your story and all of your wise words. Do you want to share with everybody how they can reach you if they've got a great referral for you and the Austin area? And do you cover any other areas as well?
We're within an hour of Austin, so that's Hill Country, Waco, all the way south, New Braunfels. So we cover that whole area. And I'm just going to put in the chat my phone number and my email. And feel free to reach out to follow up with anything that I know it's hard to kind of condense things, and likely you heard something and need more information on it. So I'm like I shared with you all, I had a lot of people that helped me, and I love to help other people. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And I did see somebody put in here, they put in the link to WealthX, so thank you. That was awesome. And yeah, the podcast is Win, Make, Give. That I highly recommend that podcast for you. And if you subscribe to that podcast and are listening to it, you'll hear when the next wealth series comes along. For your own family, I would encourage you to take that and learn to know what to do with all this additional GCI that you're going to get as you work your way into luxury.
I love that. Okay, one last question is your social media. Somebody's just asking for that. If you want to type that in, is it just your name?
But well, that's my personal social media. You can look me up, Jeannette Spinelli. It's just my name, two N's and two T's. And then our social media for Spinelli Residential Group is Spinelli Residential Group at KW Austin Portfolio Real Estate.
Awesome.
Residential
Okay,
Group at
great.
KW
So
Austin Portfolio.
awesome. So everybody follow her, friend her, whatever you wanted, whatever social media is your thing. And thank you so much, Jeannette, for joining us today.
Can
And I
I
look
ask
forward
you
to
one favor? I'm going to take a picture of his main screen. Can you all wave? Can you wave? 1, 2, 3. Wave. Perfect. We will
awesome.
put that on our social media.
Awesome. Well, thank you so
Sandra. I
much.
really enjoyed it.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we'll be back in a month for the second Tuesday of the month. Thanks so
Great.
much. Bye,
You're
guys.
welcome. Bye-bye.